how does a kid actually learn to read? It can seem like pure magic, but there's a real science to it. Today, we're going to demystify that whole process. We're going to look at two of the most influential, structured ways to teach literacy, Orton-Gillingham and Montessori. Think of them as two different roads, both leading to the exact same amazing destination.
Okay, let's just dive right in. To really get a feel for one of these methods, I want you to imagine you're stepping into a classroom. The energy in here is electric. Kids are focused, they're moving, they're talking. This is no quiet library, folks. This is a literacy workshop, and it is in full swing. So you hear kids chanting this over and over. Split the board. What on earth does that mean? Well, they're reminding each other that some sounds in English, like the K sound, can be spelled more than one way, C or K. They're getting ready to write down both options. You see, this isn't just memorizing stuff, it's active, hands-on problem solving. Now just look at this whirlwind of activity. It might look a little chaotic, but it's all so intentional. Over here, you've got these rapid-fire drills. A letter flashes on a card, and boom, the kids all shout its sound. Over there, they're tracing letters in glitter trays. They're literally feeling the shape of the letters. They're blending sounds together, trying to figure out if snop is a real word or just a silly one. Then, like a magic trick, a magic E pops up and turns shin into shine. It's a total full-body experience. It seriously looks like a whirlwind, right? But every single one of those activities is planned down to the second. So, that leads to the big question. What is the method behind all this exciting madness? And how in the world does it actually wire a brain to read? All right, the method we just saw in action, that's called Orton-Gillingham, or OG for short. And a great way to think about it is as the architect of reading. It builds literacy skill by skill, brick by brick, following a really specific and logical blueprint. And this definition really nails its core identity. OG is structured and sequential. You have to master A before you get to B. It's multisensory, so it gets sight, sound, and touch all working together, just like we saw. And it's explicit. Nothing is left up to guesswork. It was actually first designed for students with dyslexia, which is exactly why it's so direct and so systematic. So that whirlwind we saw, it's all organized around a core routine, the three-part drill. First up is the visual drill. See the letter, say the sound. Simple. That builds lightning-fast recognition. Then comes the auditory drill. Hear the sound, write the letter. That connects what you hear to the symbol for spelling. And finally, the blending drill. Put all those sounds together to read a word. See, hear, write, read. It's a complete learning circuit. So here's the bottom line. The whole OG philosophy is built on the belief that the rules of English, even with all their quirks, can and absolutely must be taught directly. From the silent E rule to breaking down big, complicated syllables, the architect leaves no part of the building to chance. Okay, now let's take a walk down a completely different road. If OG is the architect, then the Montessori approach is the explorer. It doesn't hand you the blueprint. Instead, it creates this rich environment and basically invites the child to discover the rules of language all on their own. The philosophy here is just fundamentally different. It's developmental, which means it follows the child's own natural rhythm. It's all about discovery and letting the child direct their own learning. The real magic happens when the kid interacts with these really carefully designed hands-on materials. And oh, the materials. They are the absolute heart of this method. So instead of glitter trays, you have these beautiful sandpaper letters. A child traces the gritty shape of an M while whispering the mm sound, building that muscle memory. And get this, before they can even hold a pencil properly, they can use the Moveable Alphabet to physically build words. It lets them spell out their thoughts way before they can actually write them down. How cool is that? Now, the lessons are structured, but in this very gentle, patient way. It's called the 3-period lesson. First, the teacher introduces something new. This is the sound. Then they check for recognition. Can you show me And only when the child is totally ready do they ask for recall. What sound is this? There's no pressure, just this guided path to mastery, all at the child's own pace. And this, right here, is the key difference. Where OG explicitly teaches a rule like when two vowels go walking, the first one does the talking, a Montessori kid might discover that same pattern on their own by working with words like rain and train over and over again. The learning is inductive. It bubbles up from the child's own exploration. So we have the architect and the explorer, two really powerful multi-sensory ways to get to the same goal. Let's put them right next to each other and see exactly where they line up and where they go their separate ways. This table just makes the contrast so clear, doesn't it? Let's look at the philosophy. It's discovery versus direct instruction. For phonics, it's finding the patterns on your own versus being explicitly taught the rules. The lesson structure, a gentle three-step intro versus a high-energy three-part drill. And finally, pacing. Montessori is all about the child leading the way, while OG is teacher-led and constantly being adjusted based on exactly what that student needs. So after seeing these two pretty distinct paths, you might be sitting there wondering, okay, so which one is the right one? But modern education is starting to suggest that maybe, just maybe, we don't have to choose only one road. It's the ultimate question, right? Do you go with the structured architect or the free-range explorer? Which one wins? And the answer, more and more, seems to be that the most powerful approach isn't one or the other. It might just be a fusion of the two, a blend that takes the best parts of each method. This is what we call a blended curriculum. It takes those beautiful hands-on materials and that deep respect for self-paced learning from Montessori, and it combines it with the super clear, systematic, rule-based instruction from Orton-Gillingham. It's really the best of both worlds. So what does this actually look like day to day? Well, a student might start their journey with those Montessori sandpaper letters, but they might also do a fast-paced OG-style sound drill. They could build words with the Moveable Alphabet and then get a direct lesson on how to break those words into syllables. They get to explore freely, but they have this systematic safety net of rules to catch them. Ultimately, as this quote points out, it all comes down to the individual kid. Montessori provides this wonderful, natural on-ramp to reading for so many children. But for kids who struggle, especially students with dyslexia, that intensive, explicit framework of OG can be an absolute game changer. A blended approach lets a teacher dial up the structure when it's needed and dial it back to allow for more exploration. And that leaves us with one last big thought. We've been talking about learning to read, but this idea is so much bigger, isn't it? Is the future of all learning a careful, thoughtful blend of explicit structure and guided discovery? Providing the blueprint, but leaving enough room for the student to become their own explorer. It's a powerful question to think about.